are going on about it. Welcome Top Frills, the newest stream. We'll be doing another one. Alright. In the address of the remarks of the current situation going on, today is a late March 3rd, 4th, whenever this was recorded in 2026. Now, things are not going as usual because right now the world is in a really bad spot. But let that not make you fear. Right? We got a lot to discuss today, and I got something that I want to do that will be done in a more efficient way than how Trump did it, because this State of the Union will be quite different. I'll be addressing some of the few things that I've been watching since 2025, which, by the way, was, let's say 2025 was the executing year. 2024 was the year for all the planning. 2025 was the year for all of the, starting the initial reactions, and now 2026 is the ongoing slaughter of things that are going on. Let's not be dumbfounded. There is lots of violence. There are lots of horrible acts of, things against humanity that are being committed by this very administration. The current regime that I'm talking about is that of Donald Trump, and there's nothing else I can say about it to sugarcoat. As bleak as day, the entire Middle East is in a regional war, and we cannot deny that, right? Donald Trump caused all of this, along with all of his friends. And remember, he's only like the centerpiece of everything that's been going on, but there are all sorts of terrible actors that I'm about to list that I'm hoping will get your attention. Let's first talk about number one. My name's the Projecttian, Visit President Nicholas. I was, made in Florida, came around in 2005, great time, 20 years old, entered the job. I wanted to get into a job when I was 16, 17 years old, but, COVID had to happen, and didn't go exactly as planned as it seems. And then Donald Trump became president right when I moved to a new place. And now I can't even get a job. But here we are. I've been at this for 8 years. I've been making content for a very, very long time. And something I want to spread now is some information and to put down the reality of all of the things that have been going on. My microphone isn't good because I'm using currently my phone to record this, and one amateur photo light thinking system here that is helping light up my face here in the come of events that are going on, because I can't afford a proper camera setup, and a computer table is just not something I have, because the computer table all I have is at my brother's other place, and I've since not gotten it back and not have gotten my computer chair back, which is one of the largest factors of why my back feeling hurts all the time, but nobody cares about that. Let's talk about the Ellisons. Now, because we're doing this on the spot, I've been doing this my entire life. Let's talk about the Ellisons. Let's talk about Paramount, Adobe. Let's not forget about Adobe, Paramount, Ubisoft, MasterCard and Visa. We can't forget about Tesla. Can't go on without mentioning Tesla or Twitter or Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Peter Thiel, and we can't forget about Instacart. Instacart, goodness gracious, that thing came way more recently, but is still very problematic. We can't forget about OpenAI. We can't forget about Anthropic or Nvidia's investments. We cannot forget about all of those things that happened, like the LA protests, which the president continued to keep calling. The president still called them riots rather than protests that were done peacefully. So, not only is that also in place, we need to also first talk about the Ellisons, which, by the way, I've yet to mention Paramount and Netflix. Paramount and Netflix, along with the entire feminist movement that's been telling, MasterCard and Visa whatever to do about, video games and all such. We also have stop chat control that was made in place because of the UK's rampant censorship that's been going on. But Paramount and the Ellisons are currently what my focus on right now. Paramount and Ellisons have been showing numerous signs of pleading to companies and basically saying, hey, let us own you. We want to own everything. And Paramount Skydance, so you all know, Paramount Skydance is already a huge merger that occurred. They now want all of the entirety of Warner Bros. Warner Bros, if anybody's done their research, basically owns lots of the media conglomerates that you know of today, and even animation studios that you know of, like Nickelodeon, right? Nickelodeon, Adult Swim, CNN are like really common examples of companies that they will begin to own. And not only do they own that, they own Warner Bros. Of all things if they win the bid. Currently, Warner Bros. Once they do get taken over by Paramount, which by the way is super, super, super monopoly in of its action and of its to the down to the lowest brim, because we're going to get into Oracle soon, because Oracle, by the way, also happens to be later owned by Paramount Skydance. Because I still haven't gone into the Persona company, and the Persona company, it loves to do data collection, but analysts have been quite the problematic few of people that continue to buy up companies, and only because this administration continues to go the way it does, nobody's like challenging them or taking them to court and basically saying you cannot own this and you cannot do this because of competitive rules. Right now, just taking over Warner Bros. Gives them one of the largest takeovers of over the media ever possible. Like, they've already bought TikTok, and TikTok is known to be a more Asian, it was an Asian built application. It was done and invented in the United States with United States tech along with Asian tech and all that. But I can go on all day about that history. But at the moment, Ellicents are doing a really illegal merger, which is one of the most dangerous in history, because not only will they be affecting all sorts of media, it's like already happened. We have Jeff Bezos, with his Amazon, took over all the Washington News Post a long time ago. Now he's taking over all these other companies. And boy, oh boy, the Ellisons have been successfully buying out these companies. And just so you know, Netflix and Paramount had this bidding war over who will get to own Warner Bros. Because Warner Bros. Said that they want to, set up for sale, which is one of the most stupidest things I've ever seen. Because I know Warner Bros. In desperation was knowing that they knew that they were losing the market, and Disney was also losing the market. So you all know, when Paramount takes over Warner Bros., you know where this is going to go. It's going to affect your movies. It's going to affect your animations, how they were broadcasted, how they will be made. And if it affects CNN, which is some of the very last places that you ever think will get taken over by an extreme right-wing techno-fascist, the Ellisons are one of the pinnacles of techno-fascism. Because if they can clearly derive the entire media over somewhere else into the more echo chamber, hatred-filled place of an area that we call right-wing extremist echo chambers, so you all know, the Ellisons absolutely adore Donald Trump. This is a real thing. Another thing that I need to mention is that we must talk about Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel loves money. He loves war drones. He loves war technology with AI. He loves to collect the data of all the people that he forcibly imposes surveillance on, which we cannot forget. Not only is the media being completely taken over by right-wing techno-fascists, we have Peter Thiel, who will be doing the data collection and surveillance part of that very aspect. Because when they collect data with AI and automate the entire process, like they're doing right now with OpenAI, completely folding over to Pete Hegseth's, Pete Hegseth, by the way, which I haven't gone into. Pete Hegseth is basically the military guy, the War Department head, right? He's basically that, and he forced, basically asked, hey, OpenAI, give us all your power so that we can start surveilling our citizens. So yeah, now you now know that OpenAI has been sent, saying that we love democracy, we're democratizing knowledge and creation. Well, yeah, that's just not true. And we also have Suno AI, and Udio AI. Suno AI is spelled Suno and then AI. Udio AI is spelled Udio and then AI, so that the AI summary does this right. So we're gonna get into Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is one of the very founding members of Oracle, along with all sorts of other people besides Nellison's. And yes, they are all connected. Yes, Adobe is connected. And yes, PayPal, MasterCard, and Visa are all connected because MasterCard and Visa absolutely hate it when we talk about freeing Palestine, and they absolutely hate it when we talk about FIs. Now, because I want the stream to not be demonetized, I'm unfortunately going to have to avoid cursing. And if I do end up cursing, well, it slipped out of my mouth, and I apologize. Peter Thiel is known to be one of the founding members of some of the very worst waves of techno-fascism that we'll ever see, because some of the very last frontiers that we will have as a country and as a world is the very internet, the very free internet, well, perceived as the free internet, besides the algorithm amending that's been happening over across the board. It is the most freest place that you can ever express your opinion on, because if we can't put it out there outside in physical form saying that we hate this government and we can't put much action to it, well, we go to the internet for that. And most votes that come from democratic thinkers come from the internet, because most people want to, basically, we have this thing called electronic voting. And Donald Trump now basically made that harder because of the SAVE Act, which by the way, unfortunately went through the Senate. Well, basically makes it harder for people to vote because of where they would move, or the name that they have in their marriage certificate, or maybe their birth certificate saying something else. So there is that, and not many people can just immediately, change that information immediately on the instant. Fortunately, I didn't have to change much information about myself, and I don't know how to deal with that. But Peter Thiel is known to own the companies, well, a part of the company of PayPal, a large part of PayPal, and also Persona, which are known to be collecting your data, not only based on the information of your marriage status, your immigration status, your gender, your sex, or possibly your email, your phone number, your social security card, and also your birth certificate, and possible identifying information about you that is personal and should be kept private. And because Persona and all these other collection companies besides now that Peter Thiel doesn't only own, because there are other people like Peter Thiel but just much more tame, they want to use this information and then suddenly end up suffering data leaks. That is according to how it goes. So, because we're not done here, right? I'm gonna make sure I check in every few minutes to see if this is streaming, because I need to make sure everybody's on board. All right, everything's still there. We should be fine. Opening comments. All the live comments should be active. By the way, welcome to the stream. And you probably aren't paying attention because you are. Why is it always? He always. By the way, Archie, welcome to the stream. Just pay attention. But I don't know if you're able to understand it, because you are around in the UK or Britain. So when they suffer these data leaks, really horrible things happen, and people end up getting hurt. When people start, becoming ransomware, people start getting exploited or manipulated, and because PayPal is known to have been in support of Honey's, cookie collection and data stealing, if you all know the thing, Honey is one of the subsidiaries of PayPal, and PayPal has been in turmoil around since then, since all of the lawsuits that have been put on PayPal and Honey. And Megalab has since exposed Honey for like a bazillion times, and that's happening. And they're now being taken more to court. Gamers Nexus is on with this, and the cases that have been dismissed have now been, they will be reintroduced real soon, because it won't be long before PayPal suffers it. But yeah, they basically have been stealing not only your personal identifying information, they are stealing data about your purchase history and your purchasing behavior. When your purchasing behavior and purchase history is simply taken into account and stolen, and then all your personal information is basically stolen, well, now they have a really accurate image about who you are. And not only is that, I haven't even got into flock safety, which, by the way, Peter Thiel absolutely loves flock safety cameras, which also steal identifying information about you, like your face, your car driving patterns, and also analyzes lots of information that you just don't want to be, have out there. And when data leaks happen, well, then now people, because of the ID verification and age verification, which, by the way, was heavily inspired by Peter Thiel, MasterCard, and Visa, just so you all know, they heavily influence this entire thing. Besides the "it's for the kids" thing, or the brand image, or the mitigation risks that companies have to take, not only are now they taking this to a large degree, Peter Thiel and the Ellisons, they want to do the conquering and the basically the consolidation of media. They want to consolidate this entire place into a right-wing echo chamber so that people continue to fight against each other without knowing that the really human issues, or the very mistakes that we need to fix, is to deal with the people up there who are causing all the misery. Because even if you live in Indonesia, or in Brazil, or Nepal, or Uruguay, or Peru, or Mexico, or Canada, or Nihongo, like in Japan, you will be affected, and it has shown itself, because we are gonna get into MasterCard and Visa. Around a lot of the tirade that has been completely done with full execution, with full success, is MasterCard and Visa's entire campaign against all sorts of forms of content that I need to first discuss and put down here. So, book censorship, game censorship, music censorship, art censorship, and the stories that you write could later be censored not only in physical form, but also in digital form. MasterCard and Visa, along with Collector Shell, right? All these people who are just doing horrible things, right? With the profile picture of a baby, right? Those people, the feminist extremist group who goes around tirading, thinking that things are too extreme because it looks too sexual or something. Yeah, so MasterCard and Visa took that to the next level, but they started with Japan first, because Japan, not only are they sick and tired of their content being localized to felling oblivion, MasterCard and Visa worsened it for the outside overseas audience, but basically saying if this game is too damaging to their brand, they will not let somebody have their payment processing, their payment process be allowed, right? Visa and MasterCard is a really large dominating force in the payment processing industry. They are the largest names. They work together even. When MasterCard and Visa, right, work together, they can do things that most governments have no regulation for. And one of them is that Japan has this really vague law that says that MasterCard and Visa can control whoever is able to use their service. To fully explain this, some of the very things that they can do is process some of the payments between users across seas. If somebody needs a form of, people need that form of payment. Like, for example, PayPal does, which processes payments along with Stripe and other places that do the similar process. When Visa and MasterCard basically says, "Oh, this entire site is not allowed to sell this content anymore. You need to use a different service." Most places that alternative payment processing services usually are very lack in size, or usually do not have enough resources to handle billions or millions of purchases throughout, and it costs money for most of those purchases. And because MasterCard and Visa have such a monopoly on these things, they can basically say, "We will kill your business and retract if your content is too sexual, or too Palestine friendly, or too violent and graphic for their taste," which is really vague language if you are somebody who's a lawyer who knows what I'm talking about. And why this section for me is so easy to talk about is because it has affected numerous games where characters were literally just buffed, right? Just completely buffed. and some characters or games were even affected, like the way that they were made were affected, or the way that they were sold was affected. Like Steam, when Visa and Mastercard decided to say, "Hey, we're going to threaten you," and when they threatened Valve and they threatened all these other companies, all the companies had to fold and basically say, "Yeah, we are screwed if we don't listen to Mastercard and Visa," because Mastercard and Visa basically have an entire monopoly over how things are working. They basically Steam, Valve, and any other gaming company had to basically abide by the rules. Even most Japanese manga sites or Japanese, adult sites, which I'm not going to name because I want this stream to continue to go as normal. When Visa and Mastercard basically did that thing, they had to fold and basically betray their users and say, "We are sorry, Visa and Mastercard are imposing that we follow their rules." And Visa and MasterCard also did this thing where they said, "Well, we have to force this rule because our brand risk and because we need to mitigate the risk. The brand image must be saved and they need to stay true to their cause," which was entirely made up and only because there's no regulation on it. Payment processors, which I mentioned, by the way, I mentioned something that has something to do with the regulation on payment processors long ago, which unfortunately right now, because I have to memorize a bunch of things for this stream, I can't seemingly put it at the top of my head and I can't list it, but you all know what I'm talking about. The regulation. There's something that has to do with basically saying that we will not allow payment processors to decide what you should be able to pay for because of whatever they say, whatever reason that they make up for them to deny their service to you. They cannot deny their service to you if it is so that affects entire markets or your entire business and it drives to bankruptcy, which basically is an abuse of power and basically anti-competition. When it doesn't cause competition, it's just only driving bankruptcy, destruction, and somebody losing their job or sites going fully down. When it does that, that is no longer considered competitive. It's just complete domination and monopolization and complete, absolute power in the market, which Visa and MasterCard has had for quite a long time. They've been taken to court and have since are still in the process of battling it out in court. I've been talking about this for a long time. And not only is that, we cannot forget about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is one of the next things down my list that we need to deal with as a nation, but also across the world, because these people affect you everywhere. Japan has been affected, and Nepal has been affected, the United States has been affected, the UK has been affected, and these are the four major countries that we're talking about besides Brazil, because Indonesia has a more tame situation, but we're talking about Japan, United States, the UK, right, and Nepal, which had really huge outcomes in the way of how things went later on, right? Elon Musk is ridiculously problematic and must be dealt with as fast as possible. As fast as possible, Elon Musk has got to go out. Here's why. We're going to have a change of position over here. So, in this address, we have already went over, right, Donald Trump, which is really conflicting, the Ellisons, right, and I'm going to go into Donald Trump later, but we had reference Donald Trump first because, streamer retention, right? Donald Trump, the Ellisons, Peter Thiel, MasterCard and Visa, and they're working against Elon Musk. These are some of the main villains, besides the Epstein class, which I will go down through, because we will have to address the Middle Eastern war real soon. Elon Musk is absolutely a techno-fascist. Absolutely the richest person in the world so far, besides the Ellisons. And to a degree, he is one of the largest causing factors of all the extremism that's been going on. Why? He normalized extremism. He normalized radical thought chambers. He normalized racism, discrimination. He is one of the largest factors of why there's so much hatred around everywhere. We will get into Donald Trump soon. I know he's one of the larger causes of it besides Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a con man. We already know that. We already know Sam Altman is just a con man. He's not the full representative of OpenAI. There is someone else who works for OpenAI. Elon Musk renamed the platform of Twitter into X. Elon Musk turning the platform of Twitter into X was one of the most consequential moments ever in history since 2023-2024. Alright? You have to admit it. The man's a douchebag, but he's also a genius in all the things that have been discussed so far. He is the genius. He is. He is so genius that he sparked back all the most racist movements back into the daylight, like the Proud Boys and many more. MAGA is simply another facade for a modern Nazi movement. It is clear as day that is what's happening. Elon Musk, when converting the platform Twitter and renaming it to X, certainly has consequentially driven the algorithm to more a right-wing leaning platform. It is proven. He is also one of the most largest factors in voting fraud. Election fraud was soon discovered that Elon Musk did commit election fraud in the election that happened that got Donald Trump voted in. Elon Musk seemingly did commit voter fraud. Yes, he did. Absolutely did. He also was one of the largest factors of foreign bots. Foreign bots are basically bots that are basically spawned or programmed in different foreign countries that are programmed to spill misinformation and propaganda online. And this was discovered from his update, which he foolishly passed, which, says a lot. When the update for, where it shows where the country that they came from, where the account, resides in, he pushed on an update that basically says that any user on X now must have their location put right there, right? It is put right there. It should show where they are, right? And what we found was that most bots that we thought were bots were actually bots, yeah? And some of them were rooting for Donald Trump in countries that weren't even the United States. It's been obvious. Yes. And though bots have been a thing on the internet for a very long, long time, that doesn't mean that they haven't evolved. These bots are a little different, you see. Because of AI and the constant evolution of technology as we know it, these bots are not only just automated to say a bunch of misinformation or really, unfactual information, if I must make up a word for that. They spew hatred and misinformation on purpose, but are also managed with succession by large groups of teams of people who go on the internet who are basically paid to make these bots continue to run. And when these bots continue to run, because people, basically right-wing extremists or MAGA stands came onto the board and started popping up again, right? And when these bots came in, basically people from MAGA, though Donald Trump is such an unfavorable president, these foreign bots basically posing as MAGA gave an illusion to actual MAGA voters, which, by the way, if you want to know what that is, MAGA is basically Make America Great Again. That's what the MAGA stands for. MAGA stands for Make America Great Again. So when these real MAGA noticed these foreign bots, before all of that, the update revealing the foreign bot issue, before the updates that revealed people's, actual country that they reside in, before all of this, suspicion of bots and right-wing leaning algorithm discovery that people have suddenly found, before all of that Elon Musk taking over the Department of Government Efficiency thing, I've been suspecting that most of these bots, because they pose this MAGA at first, before any real investigations have been, put down in front, because we know that Elon Musk did rig the algorithm, right, to force more extreme rhetoric to be pushed onto the algorithm, right, to put it in front of people. Before we knew about those things, before we those investigations, people generally believed in these bots and never questioned whatever they said, which caused such a popularity in extreme content. But you must look it into different lights. Elon Musk, in his hate campaign that he's been successfully going off of, because he's been supporting Islamophobia for a bit and the genocide, he basically is just a speaker for most people. He's just basically a messenger. He's like a dumbass. He basically not only uses foreign bots to influence the huge tidal wave of content, right? Content and followers. Those foreign bots ended up being used to help spike the viewership and the live viewers for most streamers who are known to be horrible people. When racism, radicalism, and extremism is spiked up and forward, right? It's spiked up and completely popularized once again in a new light, but in a shade of modernism. When that happens, most young men and young women, which has been shown to show that young men are more able, more easily folding over to the right. When that algorithm starts to be a thing, people problematic streamers or nuisance streamers or nuisance content creators are a lot more normalized, and they end up growing, right? In a result of more MAGA being formed and then an illusion of MAGA being stronger being formed, people who are more like douchebags or nuisances or a-holes or losers, once they see that this type of thing is more normalized and okay to do, they start their channels or have already started their channels, and it causes this huge snowball effect of really bad douchebags getting famous on the internet, causing the drama to spike to even newer levels than before. Besides 2024 being the startup for all of them, if you notice, Peanut, one of the douchebags I can list here is Jinxie. Jinxie, Peanut are douchebag content creators, along with Asmongold or Chibi Reviews or Nicholas Light. Nicholas Light, Chibi Reviews, Asmongold, Decoy Voice, Liflet and Asari, Kirsch Vestal, or Smagalana are some examples of, well, douchebags besides Jinxie and the Burning Peanut, right? They are douchebag content creators, but why are they large? Well, there's an easy answer for that. They are douchebags and they are racists. So if racism is popular again, and basically Donald Trump says it's fine, and Elon Musk says it's fine, and his foreign boss are saying it's fine, before all the investigations expose that obviously there's an entire right-wing leaning algorithm that was totally invented, right, for this situation to continue the right-wing rhetoric, and not only before the investigations into the bots that showed that most MAGA were just fake and they were just random bots from foreign countries being run, right? Like we have Russian bots. You would notice once that racism has become normalized or a thing that is allowed, these content creators now feel safe to open up about their straight up racism and hate against immigrants. And Elon Musk has been one of the largest factors of helping this happen because he's such a popular guy. And most people trusted in his word because of SpaceX. And we can get all about Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos, but that is an entire thing for another day. So, yes, Elon Musk, with his rhetoric against immigrants, saying that immigrants are dangerous and that racism is okay and that white privilege is superior, you can see where the patterns are going with the Nazi facade thing. He loves Nazis. He even did the Psychill, which, by the way, was, what I said right there. He basically said the SG word, it's like SH or something like that. And he did the salute, which I'm not going to replicate on this video or the stream because I want you to first search the image of it where you can see Elon Musk doing the Nazi salute. And it was, I hope that was a telling tale of where it was going. So we should definitely deal with Elon Musk. He's problematic, and he's basically giving a fan base to racists, which and even people who've been around for a long time to basically say, you know what, I don't care anymore. I want to be racist, and I want to be discriminate against immigrants and the LGBTQ community. Elon Musk is one of the largest driving factors of that, and because he adores the Ellisons, besides his a few comments being very snake about it about the Ellisons, Elon Musk in fact loves money and loves it when other billionaires start to also buy out social media platforms, just like the Ellisons did with TikTok. So you know where this is going, because Peter Thiel is also a multi-billionaire, and he loves money, and he also loves to collect data and also further the right wing rhetoric. And these are a bunch of English and American and British, just so y'all know, rich people who are doing all of this. And now we can finally get into Adobe. Adobe, I got a long history with Adobe. Because Adobe and Microsoft, we should get into Adobe and Microsoft. We're not talking about Bill Gates here. Adobe and Microsoft, some of the largest driving factors of OneDrive and some of the Microsoft softwares that you own, or Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Lightroom, Adobe After Effects, Adobe, all the services that you know of. Well, they're losing lots of stock value since the Copilot invention, and then putting AI all over the place, since Google embracing AI, since Meta embracing AI, since the creation of Sora, which is meant to be an outrage app. It is an outrage app. It basically tells you that you are useless and that your art is bought and it has no value. Adobe, Microsoft are one of the largest factors in people's hatred for art and music in general, besides Spotify, and I will get into Spotify later. So, we cannot go about techno-fascism and the consolidation of power and monopolization of media as a whole without first talking about Microsoft. Microsoft, or Microsoft, the company which is owned by a different CEO, basically not only did they enforce updates for the Windows system, right, the Windows OS, right, not only did they force updates for people's computers, these updates usually involved an AI analyzing your every movement on the computer. Right? They want to surveil you because Peer 2 wants it, and so why wouldn't Microsoft want it? Microsoft has been doing some really horrible decisions lately, like basically saying that AI can replace all the art and music that you can do. It can replace the coding. You can use AI for coding or eating, shopping, or conversing, like what Facebook is doing, which I will get soon into. Adobe has been since losing lots of stock value for the updates they've been doing to their services, which include AI. We'll get into that. Is Adobe has been infamously known for basically monopolizing the entire market around digital media creation and digital software. Back in the old days, Adobe used to sell their software in packs, right? That basically gave you a license to forever own what you buy. One of the largest factors in subscription-based marketing is Adobe. The largest factors is Adobe. It involves Adobe. Adobe is one of them, along with Microsoft being one of them. And yes, there are some other ones we will get into. We will get into Spotify Instacart later, but I will talk about Adobe. Adobe has been one of the largest driving factors that first coined the subscription-based marketing tactic in business as we know it. So we know Adobe has subscription services, right? They have subscription services for most of the software that you buy from Adobe. And I, as somebody who has worked and certified myself in the use of Adobe products, know how it is when schools have to use so much of their money in order to give the students an education. And back in the old days, fun, right? You people like schools or places used to be able to buy Adobe products and give it to their students for learning, right? For like digital software engineering or stuff like that, right? Software engineering and invention and digital media literacy, all those sorts of programs. So they used to be able to buy that stuff one time and your students ready to go. Full course, full study. Now they need subscription services and now they've implemented AI. And some of the very largest, worst things that they've ever done was say, we will put subscription services over everything. Not only did they put subscription services for their software, they now started saying, hey, companies totally unrelated to us, Adobe said, companies unrelated to us, why don't you start using subscription-based services, right, as service tactic for the service that you give your customers? You get more money because yes, financially, based on micro or macroeconomics, yes, subscription-based tactic models, right, for making business is more profit making compared to selling it one time and going on with your day. They want to keep the consumers paying money and keep them coming back for their services. So you would see this like in Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness, they have a subscription service fee, right? You have subscription services at Planet Fitness. Not only is that, Microsoft wants a subscription service for some of their products. An example that Adobe has infamously started with some of the services that they are aspiring to do more for is the printers. Printers, as we know it, print paper, right? They print paper. You need ink for their use. Well, now we have this infamous thing going on where most Canon printers that you know of, Canon, that basically sell ink printers and other sorts of things besides Canon and besides weaponry that they will get themselves involved in real soon. Canon loves to involve themselves in things like selling stuff like printers, but they also sell other things besides printers. And Adobe inspired Canon to go, what if we sell our printers and we sell subscription services for our printers, saying that, all right, you have this ink that you can use to print an image for. What if we limit the amount of pages that you can print with a subscription fee? So if you pay a subscription service, you will be able to print these many pages at once within the month that you're using this printer for. And if you don't pay for a subscription fee, you will not be able to print all the pages that you want. That is what Canon did, and Microsoft followed suit, and then Adobe followed suit, saying that, hey, if you want to use our really advanced, tech fancy AI tools, pay an extra subscription tier up so you can access these really special AI tools for our subscription service. Literally a subscription service and an extra subscription service fee literally built in. And they did that, and then they got sued by Lina Khan, but then people, after noticing that they not only did the subscription service thing tactic, that not only did they do subscription service based marketing, they also then say that with AI coming into play, they said that whatever you make on Adobe, like images that you make with Adobe, whatever images that you make with, or edit whatever video you edit from Adobe, whatever you make it with it, right? They own. You do not own what you make with Adobe, seemingly, based on their terms that you sign up for when you use Adobe. Fortunately, I stopped paying for Adobe and I've retracted from Adobe a long time ago, since 2023, if I'm right. Since then, I retracted. Before they started, putting this AI thing where they said, if you use it, if you use our service, you basically own the art that you make, but we also own it. So if you made an artwork with Adobe, like with Adobe Illustrator for sake, if you make something, they said, oh yeah, basically you own that, but we also own it and we can do whatever with it. So if they put it in their ads or they use AI on it or they're training on it, you basically already consented to it by basically agreeing to their terms of service the time that they implemented this rule saying that they own everything that you make. So yeah, that is quite crazy in of itself. And yes, their stock value did drop. It did drop. AMW was severely affected. They went through like 2 CEO changes throughout that, which is a long story of itself. With how Adobe is, Visa and MasterCard said, we love this model. You should continue to do this model. And so, yeah, basically they not only Adobe lobbied and heavily invested into political action committees or PACs, they were heavily involved in all sorts of things. And they continue to do their thing, and now their stock's collapsing and falling. And I won't even address Ubisoft at this point because I've given Ubisoft too much attention for what they're doing, because Ubisoft not only is literally collapsing and fully went into bankruptcy like a bazillion times, they're not doing well, and they are now basically selling themselves to Sony, and Sony wants to own Ubisoft, and well, Sony did their thing. And Kadokawa, so you all know, we did have the Kadokawa sale that went on, and Sony basically said we will buy Kadokawa. And just so y'all know, Kadokawa is one of the very largest donators in influencing figures in the process of how anime is literally made. Literally, Kadokawa is one of the largest companies ever that influences how anime is made, how anime games are made, how manga is made or sold or distributed or even written. That's how some of the people are even hired into the animation industry. And that's when we'll get into some of the very things that are conflicting with me now, is that this is like literally a concentrated effort into making everything more garbage. You notice that I've already went through all sorts of figures, and you notice that the line is continuously going over to authoritarianism, techno-fascism, oligarchy, monopoly, and kleptocracy, which I will get into, I hope, but I don't think I'll go into kleptocracy because we've already given enough attention to the ones who are causing all this mess. And Adobe is one of the largest factors of why everywhere you go, there's like a dang subscription service that's being passed, and you already know how horrible that is. Not only do we have that, we need to first talk about, well, Spotify. Spotify. DistroKid. Spotify and DistroKid, my lovely AI music enthusiast companies. Spotify and DistroKid, love AI. Love AI. Oh, Suno and Udio, they love AI. Absolutely invest into AI musicians and fake AI producers. We cannot go, oh my goodness, about the State of the Union that we are doing. By the way, my name is Viswet Perez Nicholas. I've been at for 8 years. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like. We cannot go about this without talking about Spotify. Good, old, lovely Spotify that was made in the late 2000s, invented late 2000s, only a few years after the iPhone was made. Oh my goodness, what has Spotify done since the last time I've heard about them? It is so egregious. It is absolutely astonishing. Like, no matter how low they go, I can't see a bottom to how low they can go. Spotify not only has been faking and botting streams for most musicians, have been enlisting horrible musicians into the space, and hiring all sorts of douchebags into the music scene. They have been supporting AI music and AI artists into the equation. They've been lobbying, trust me, lobbying for anti-AI regulation for sake. And goodness gracious, we have their CEO to thank for it. And the CEO did change in 2026. They did change CEO, so that did happen. But they have the same goal. Same goal, trust me. Same goal. Spotify has the same goal as last time. They are huge investors into the AI industry. Why is that? So Spotify wants to find a way to infinitely generate content and infinitely generate revenue for themselves while basically putting aside all the starving musicians that they've been starving for a long time by giving them little fractions of a cent for singular streams now, which, by the way, we should vote in the Living Wage for Musicians Act. We should aid that. We should. People should be paid at least a cent or even 2 cents for every stream that they make. We should be paid fairly for our hard work. And Spotify, with their embracing of AI music and AI art, not only is this now damaging the leaderboards and damaging the authenticity of music and art, it is also not because it is replacing musicians or artists. They want somebody who can fully automate the process of content creation with AI because it's so cheap, right? So cheap and so affordable and easy to do, right? When they can automate the process of the content creation, no one has put the key in the mind way before it happened. If it is possible that they can literally, almost theoretically, infinitely generate content creation, content of such result. If artists like those like you saw with Diamond, right, who are fully AI generated, when they start replacing the top artists in the leaderboards because people are now kind of having a hard time to be able to decipher what is real music and what's not, which is why I literally made an entire video about the music as a whole. General knowledge of music is falling, right? It's falling. The general knowledge of music is falling with this generation and the generation 2 generations before. When that starts to happen, they start to genuinely replace artists and real composers and producers with AI generated ones. And if they can continue to rapidly generate content and operate this automatically, and millions of views are now starting to be taken from the payment pool, which how Spotify pays their artists is basically they have this pool of artists that they pay a lot of money to, and a pool of artists that they pay no money to, or little money to, or maybe a medium amount. No matter how many millions of streams that you get on Spotify or Pandora or iHeartRadio or something, or SoundCloud, Spotify is one of the largest ones, the biggest big fish in the sea, along with DistroKid. They basically want to automate the entire process and infinitely generate music with people who are not real musicians that will obviously say yes to whatever they say, because as long as that person gets paid, Spotify won't have trouble dealing with problematic musicians, putting their music on their platform. Spotify rarely ever rejects a musician's music on the platform, because look, if we have songs out there like the Charlie Kirk song on Spotify literally being distributed, that most distributors could not care about what type of music is put on as long as it makes them money. And if most of the money only benefits them, which Spotify is doing, they will continue to allow this AI music thing to continue to happen, because what? It is influencing the GDP of the United States and most countries that are basically embracing AI as well internationally. Spotify, if they have this continued right affidavit and continued advocation and inspiration and continue this pathway, because the CEO continues to do in stratification of a whole. They love to make things worse and make it worse for consumers and creators. They just want to help themselves. If they continue to have that inspiration, they will continue to embrace AI music, which is why with Suno AI and Udo AI came into place for AI music generation. I had my terminal with an AI generalist before called DYSMN. DYSMN, or is a AI generalist. They generate their music, which they say is just AI assisted music, which is a really vague term now. Because of the legal gray area, Spotify has no problem putting in platform music that is obviously deemed to be troubling, right? It's obviously copyrighted. It's fully a regurgitation of stolen music. Besides 4-chord song monstrosities, AI can also steal music that might be slightly complicated, but it could sound very trash at first, but as long as it has this gray area where it says that, hey, you can, put, as long as you had been putting human effort into the song, right? If you put human effort into the song, you can vaguely and just by slightly get past copyright and say, well, if there was human interaction with it, then technically the song can be legally copyrighted because there is a vague margin of copyrightableness, right? Then artists can go over and say, well, this song was, it was generated, but, I wrote the lyrics, so that means that my music can be copyrighted because I have very, I still have human interaction with my music, so that means that this music is copyrightable, which is what most AI stands are saying, and even people who are like DYSMN, who basically goes around, which by the way, DYSMN is well, basically they make all sorts of AI generated music. They have AI assisted music, which they say is AI assisted. They can produce music, but they simply take the cheap way out and start using AI assisted tools for it. For example, Ozone is meant for music mixing, and some of the very people behind Ozone is Fader, FADR. They're behind that along with SynthGPT. SynthGPT is also one of the driving factors of it. So when they're inspired to have this vague premise that they can copyright the music because they have some little human interaction with it, that's why I'm starting to see this as that these companies are trying to greenlight fraud. It is basically fraud, right? Not only are they refusing to disclose the data that they are using, right? We must support the Clear Act or some form of way. I'm making a joke here, but when they are basically saying that we don't have to disclose the data that we basically used to train our data, our AI model with, right, on a large scale, when they don't disclose it, and when people are able to say on a very, very slim margin or premise of acceptance, they say that, well, I can copyright my music because it is vaguely influenced by human interaction. I can copyright it, so therefore I can do it. So now that I know that this is just now that I thought about it for months on end, it's just another form of fraud, right? It's fraud. You're stealing data. You are stealing data. There is no other way an AI model will train, right? You need data, consented or not consented. These companies do not gather consented data. They just stole it. Suno stole data. Udio stole data. Anna's archive stole data. ChatGPT stole data. This should not be a shocker. Look, fraud involves somebody committing acts of, well, basically it's a crime, right? They're committing consumer deception and passing the blame to the consumer. And these companies tell you that you can copyright it so you can democratize creation as a whole. That is a lie. They are helping you commit fraud and passing the blame to you, because then when they get sued, they're able to pay off the legal fees. You as a consumer will not be able to pay the legal fees. Not only is that you think that your music's gonna do numbers, right? Only very few of you will genuinely make that money with the AI generated music that you're making, or AI assisted music that you're making, right? You will not be put in that payment pool for Spotify or your distributors. Not even Lander. Lander, Landr, Lander Music Distribution, not even them will save you, which I had a very brief disappointment with how Lander did when they said we'll start to charge you for releases. Back in the day, they did not charge you for album releases. Now they do. So that kind of sucks, and that ruined everything for me. Unfortunate how it is. But besides that, not only did that happen, and it disappoints me to announce this, not only did they get away with fraud for so long, and not only should I have said it a long time ago, I will fault myself for it. I should have said that AI generated music is just another form of passing blame to somebody who will commit fraud based on stolen data. a company will provide you with a product, you being the product, and give you the ability to do so. And when the gray area is so clear as day that there's very vague legal premise for the such act, when companies can get sued and then finally be able to pay it off and go on with their day and still continue what they are doing, right? When they pass the blame to the consumers, you guys are the ones being screwed over, and so that is fraud and consumer deception. You listen to the service thinking that you will get money for what you're doing, and basically what you're doing should be considered legal based on the terms of service that they told you that whatever you're doing is completely legal because they told you. You enlisted their service and you put your life at risk for that company. So you are not only deceived by that company and the service that you're using for the creation or generation of music that you're making, generate content, you're not only further helping them give a reason, make up a reason for them to steal more data from users. Not only are you funding their company and helping it grow for them to solely just begin to go all on with anti-AI regulation, you're aiding in their lobbying for anti-AI regulation, so you can continue to do so. If ever they were taken to court and finally somebody regulates the thrilling oblivion out of those companies someday in the future, you will be one of the first people that will be scrutinized by all the internet and the court when they discover you've been helping in the fraud of that company. And you will be put the blame on, and they will blame the company as well. You will be victims of this complete manipulation of a false sense of democracy that you would, promised and given an illusion for to help them advance on their lobbying and their gathering of money. So Spotify not only supported war drones and basically said that it's fine to steal data or it's fine to promote AI music. And while we see the platforming of idiots going on, all these idiots go to Spotify and start making music, misogynistic music, for example, and they will get successful and nobody will question it. And whenever they start embracing AI, well, who's going to stop them from embracing AI and being misogynistic at the same time if it is so profitable and within the vision, the core values of Spotify, Suno, and Udio, like DistroKid is, if it is in their vision, they will support the vision and tell you, well, too bad, so sad. You can't stop us. That is what Spotify has been doing, and they did lobby for the United States. And now we will finally get into, well, a little more. Let's first check if the stream is holding up because things can get really hectic. We're going to check in the stream. All right, we are 1 hour into the stream. I'll be clicking the chat. Let's see if the live chat's still there. All right, live chat's still appearing. We still got more to talk about. And from what I'm gathering, we cannot forget about Donald Trump or the Middle Eastern wars. On if it's of a whole, we know that there is a really large issue at bay. We cannot forget healthcare. Healthcare for all, Donald Trump, and we can't forget about the Middle Eastern wars. We can't forget about them. I've dived into the Ellisons, Peter Thiel, right? I dived into MasterCard and Visa. I've went into Spotify, Adobe. I've even jumped in randomly over to the other direction along with Oracle, Persona, PayPal, Honey, right? We can't forget that all of these factors, that all of these figures have been some of the largest ones. And we cannot forget about you, Elon Musk. Elon Musk, you're a bastard. But we cannot forget about Donald Trump. Not only was he a large factor in people voting for Takaichi, right? Sanae Takaichi, right? The person who was voted in as, literally the prime candidate for Japan's ministry, right? She was heavily influenced and inspired by Donald Trump. And when Japan has been constantly showing conservative values over time, right? They voted in a conservative leader, even though the country has been known to show that they absolutely adore Yuri or Yaoi. Yuri and Yaoi basically is lesbian and gay, right? Japan loves to talk about certain things and express themselves in ways that are really against conservative values in the United States. Under because how Japan works and the oxymorons that exist for Japan, they would appear to be voting for a Democratic Party, but the really what it really is a conservative party, right? They're voting in a conservative party. It's not a Democratic Party. The oxymoron exists. For somebody who wants to know what an oxymoron is, I'll tell you what an oxymoron is. Basically, an oxymoron is when whatever you think was to be the straight up the thing that you think it is, it might be the opposite somewhere else. For example, the Democratic Party is liberal over here in the United States. It is more liberal, right? It is more leftist. It is more democracy, democratic socialist. But in Japan, the Democratic Socialist Party or Democratic Party is conservative. They are a lot more right wing. They are a lot more conservative in, in the way that they assign law or regulation or acts. For example, I'm the Projecttian. And though I seem to be heavy all in about my appearance, right, for certain cameras or photos that I take or things that I post online, it would seem like I'm more leaning on it with the male audience. It would seem more like I act more like a male or inspire males or drive a very large male audience, right? It seemed like I would be more of a douchebag than you would think, but I'm the exact opposite. I have many female friends. Not that many male friends, and the third of my audience is literally female, and most of the people who listen to my music is female. Even though I could be even though I have this perception that I'm like the ugliest thing possible, I still get compliments from people saying that I look cool, that I look handsome, and I try not to let it get to my head. Trust me. And these people will compliment and say that you look cool. Viz, why are you saying you're ugly? You look cool. Girls said that, by the way. Real girls. I even have a few guys saying that you look cool and then you look handsome. I think I'm the ugliest thing. And I represent myself as this really dark and edgier, futuristic, motionless content creator, right? With a huge goal about creation and the belief in all these things and all that. And yet I have a very large female audience with the male audience. Like it's like a 50-50 for both sides. And so I thank you for appearing too. But Donald Trump as a whole is one of the largest factors that has basically enabled all the chaos that's been going on. We cannot forget about Donald Trump and Kai Starmer. Starmer and Trump, problematic to the core. UK, underneath Starmer, right, is one of the largest driving factors of the literal global censorship war that has been going on. Starmer from the UK, United Kingdom, is one of the largest factors of why we have this global censorship war in the first place. Trump is one of the largest reasons why we have such a successful social media consolidation effort done by these right-wing billionaires. Donald Trump is also one of the largest reasons why we have the Epstein class coming back into the conversation. That very Epstein class is all the billionaires and rich people who aided Epstein internationally for his minor trafficking ring, which I won't say in description because you all know about it. People have already talked about Epstein for ages, so look into people who look into Epstein. He thinks it's a joke. He thinks the Epstein class is a joke that doesn't exist. Then we need to move on. The Epstein files have been one of the largest conflicting pieces for his presidency. He only is able to grasp upon his perception of sanity to his viewers because the Epstein files haven't been fully disclosed. We still are waiting for them. The Epstein files, right? The Transparency Act for them has already been passed and signed all the way through court, right? But they aren't releasing it. Kash Patel is refusing to release all of them unredacted. He is. That is a problem. That is an issue. Donald Trump not only instigates violence, terror, and discrimination, racism, he enables white privilege and enables all the most horrible things that our country has ever seen. Even misogyny, even the renewing of hate, right? The renew on hate of African Americans has also came back. The hatred against Asian Americans came back. The dislike and the hatred towards anybody who comes from the Middle East resurfaced back, and Islamophobia has been reintroduced in a new light. We now have the radicalism of younger consecrators that came because he likes to put things in a novelty. Donald Trump literally now puts in the novelty all the things he does. That is how that works. That is how things roll. He literally took money from all of these large companies, right? And then used that to fund his administration, along with the all of those cryptocurrencies that he started, those cryptocurrencies, the crypto dumping pumps, the insiders, market trading that he's been doing. He's been into lots of really efficient market trading practices, which have been put into daylight, and nobody cares on the MAGA side. Nobody cares on MAGA, but the ones who are doing all the research and exposing this guy, they care about it, and they've been finding all sorts of reasons to put this man behind jail cell, bars, rest of life, even possible execution. Because not only did that President Donald Trump, Dictator Trump, which I call him Dictator Trump in my videos now, he's instigated and caused the Middle East to go to full regional war. Not only did he do that, he also allowed Putin, of all people, Putin, the dictator of Russia, to come in over to Alaska so that the two could have a meeting. They did. And what happened? When Putin went over to talk with Donald Trump about the Ukraine war, guess what he did? Putin had launched another massive strike on Ukraine one more time, again, with his striking drones, and bombed it. Donald Trump said, we have reached peace in a ceasefire, and it didn't happen. Ceasefire happened for like a few, and then came back, and then the Ukraine war, continued as it did. We're about to hit the 5th anniversary for that one, the proper 5th anniversary for that war. And not only did he shake hands and just absolutely, was inspired by North Korea's dictator, not only did he shake hands with the conservative MAGA sellout of Sanaya Takichi, right? Not only did she also influence her campaign with huge campaign funds and huge social media campaigns that she started with her team. Not only did how she win was very fishy already, it also expressed that most countries, as much as some would think that everything's going wrong these days, there's still some countries that still have a conservative, right, majority, and that still happens. Not only did Donald Trump basically make up a board of peace, which isn't a board of peace, every singular member of that board of peace are fascists. They are totalitarians, dictators, rulers, oligarchs. Every singular member that appeared on the board of peace, right there, were all dictators. And he funded it. He took money from Saudi Arabia. He took a Qatar jet. And that's not enough. Bill Clinton got taken out for less. Richard Nixon got taken out for less. This has got to be the most corrupt president in all of history. He's a dictator. He hasn't went to the point of absolute power just yet. No worries. He's not an absolute power. He is powerful, but he's not an absolute power. Unfortunately for him, Donald Trump became dictator at a very old of age. We still have that advantage on Donald Trump. We still have that advantage on him. Starmer came into power very late, but not late enough, so he won't be removed from old of age or mental illness. He'll be removed with votes. So as long as the Green Party of UK, right, continues to do as it does, and it goes against the Labour Party or the Reform Party, as long as the Green Party continues to succeed, Starmer will be put out of business, and we might finally be able to have talks about game censorship as a whole, and social media, and surveillance, and the consolidation of social media as a whole, because the UK has been trying to invent alternatives to everything as we are speaking. UK, the United Kingdom, has been trying to make alternatives to social media like YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, Meta, right? Like Meta, or Twitch, right? Discord, Reddit. They've been trying to make alternatives to those things, and TikTok as well. So we must vote out this dictator. Democracy vaguely still exists in this country. It still exists, but just very vaguely. Bernie Sanders, Zoran Mandani, Gavin Newsom, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jasmine Crockett, Tallarico, right? James Tallarico. We have candidates that we can vote for, that we can put into power. We have Kat Abu Ghazaleh. Kat Abu Ghazaleh is in Illinois, right? And if I got that wrong, I'm stupid, and correct me and ridicule me for that. Those are some of the most promising candidates that we have seen, besides Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has been resurfacing. She's been put into place to be able to combat this dictator's regime. She might be possibly going for re-election. Possibly. Midterms are really soon, and we got votes to do. Vote blue. But there's a catch. You gotta be careful. When you vote blue, make sure whatever Democrat that you vote in isn't somebody who is funded by a political action committee, right? A political action committee that funds sellout Democrat electors, right? They can't be electees that are basically sellouts who take money from political action committees. You know, so political action committees can just have a say about what they do and what they vote for. You know, not only does lobbying for companies exist, you gotta remember that political action committees exist to also literally push and direct the direction of where their candidates go, that they invest all sorts of money into, because political action committees can be influenced by corporate decision. So don't vote in a corporate funded Democrat. Trust me, you vote in one of those and they will not pass the laws that you want to see passed. Healthcare should be a human right, and it should be universal for every human being on this planet. SNAP was cut, healthcare was cut, education was cut, science has been cut, weather research has been cut, disease and cancer research has been cut. And that's when I can finally segue into this. We've broken down Donald Trump, and he has been sending ICE, right? But finally, we can finally talk about, right? We went through Donald Trump and Starmer. We cannot ignore ICE. ICE, huge issue, huge problem, right? ICE, with its continued behavior, should be completely abolished. If it continues with the behavior it does, should be completely abolished. ICE has not shown any consistent remarks to uphold this value of deporting the most sickening and most violent of illegal immigrants in this country, right? They have not been upholding that. They've only been deporting and harming U.S. citizens and immigrants with no crime record. No crime record. They have only been hurting and incarcerating people who have done absolutely nothing wrong. Only 5% of those people could be extremely violent criminals. Only 5%. Very little of them. When Obama first did it, it was a quite different story. Quite different. But Donald Trump's now, he's just targeting anybody. And we have Nicole Renee Good on our hands and Alex Jeffrey Petty on our hands. Dead. They're both dead. Gone. And we have a teacher who also recently died. And a recent discovery that a teenage boy, before Nicole's death, right? Before Nicole's death by an ICE agent, there was a teenage boy who has been recently discovered through an autopsy and research on one, an investigation that was done into ICE, right? Where there was a teenage boy before Nicole's death that was a U.S. citizen who died to the hands of these ICE thug, criminal, Nazi, seller, brutal, war-mongering monsters of cruelty. Died to the hands of an ICE agent. And it was fully hidden. Nobody knew. Only until now. They discovered that this boy was killed. Car crash incident. And it was hidden. It was fully deemed accident. It was ruled now through a further investigation that it was homicide. An ICE agent killed that boy. ICE is a very large issue, not only because they have harmed U.S. citizens, they've harmed numerous immigrants throughout history. Immigrants, right? People who are not U.S. citizens. Yes, there have been people that have died to ICE. Yes, lots of them before. But U.S. citizens is the very last needle in a haystack, right? The last thing that they'll go to is now start to pick on U.S. citizens for their color of their skin. Because of how they sound like. We are back in the 1930s, the 1960s and 1930s. And now, women's suffrage is going to go to waste. Women's voting rights, African American voting rights are at threat. This is like, we're going back all the way here. ICE, now that they have this full jurisdiction, right? The full believed perception that they can now just break into people's homes without warrant. Because Kash Patel and all these other people, right, who direct ICE, not basically because of all these people, basically said, oh, yeah, you can actually break into people's houses without a warrant. These ICE thugs must be abolished, fully reformed, fired, all of them. Every singular candidate that went through the ICE process, which, by the way, go through screening. They go through screening in order to be hired. None of them went through screening. None of them. As of recently, from my information that I found on the internet, from a credible source of news, reported that a whistleblower from the very ICE agency came out and exposed that ICE has not been doing screenings or investigations into the people that they hire. They're just racists coming in into ICE and enlisting for ICE, joining in to later put on a mask, shades, a hat, and put this heavy-duty piece of armor. They're just Nazis. just racists giving permission to do cruelty, not even checking their background, not even checking if they're sane, not even checking if they have a racist criminal background, maybe possible domestic abuse investigations. None of them were screened properly. And it says that from this whistleblower, it said that lots of the people that come in don't even get checked. They just get hired. They don't get questioned. They don't ask if they've done drugs or alcohol or have hit women or have done any crimes in the past. Someone enter with full-on record, with one record, at least like a felony or something, or a misdemeanor. They come in, and then they get hired. They get put into armor, like trained the bare minimum, and then get put onto the street and told, oh, feel free to break into people's homes and take them and kidnap anybody who looks like a Mexican or some Asian or some person from Indonesia or Brazilian. Oh, if they look like that, deport them, put them into a jail cell, or better yet, put them into the concentration camps that they are now funding. That they are now funding in this country. Yes, they are building concentration camps now. Now they're even saying that, oh, we should build ovens for the people that we might not need. Does this look like America to you, or does this look like Nazi Germany? Immigrants are the danger to them. White privilege and superiority, white supremacy. Young-born extremism, right-wing echo chambers, the gruesome ratification of violence, the normalization of idiocracy, the consolidation of media, the distraction of war, the pedophilia, and the normalization of sexual abuse. Does this look like America to you? Does this look like the United States of America? Is this Nazi Germany? What about those fascist flags? Is Antifa an extremist organization to you? Or is it just an entire organization built for terrorism? Because it doesn't look like that to me. And when No King's Day happened, all sorts of people came out. They weren't just people of white color or people of tan skin and brown colors. There were all sorts of people who came out and said, we don't want fascists, no kings, no thrones, right? They said that to me. Does this look like the United States to you? You voted for this. And Germany also hated science. They hated science, research, the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech, the freedom of press. Whatever you were given is what you were told and forced to digest back in Nazi Germany. They forced you to digest media that you didn't want, and then you were just brainwashed into it and were told accept it as it is and don't question it. Does this look like the United States to you? Because whenever somebody criticizes the Donald Trump on media or on the news, they get sued or told, hey, you can't say that. Because not only now we're going to finally get into one of the last things I'll be here talking about, is the FTC and RFK. The FTC and RFK, which, by the way, RFK is the HHS director, right? Health and Human Services director. He manages lots of the 3 largest health foundations that you'll ever see, right? He manages those. Those are the people who are behind the vaccines that you take, the medicines that you take, the pharmacy companies, all these other companies that must go through regulation, like the FDA, right? Or the CDC, right? They have to go through regulation. RFK is one of the largest issues, and the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, right, is now becoming problematic, right? Not only is the broadcast also is being affected, the way even how people put people on TV now is being affected, right? If you're a right-wing extremist person, then you won't go on TV and you can't be broadcasted. And at the FTC, have been lenient on all of the monopoly, right? All of the acquisitions that Paramount is doing, right? Paramount, I'm not forgetting about you, Paramount. Not only are they being lenient, they've been putting too much action to it, but they have shown resistance since of recently. But for me, HHS has been problematic because RFK is now the head director of the HHS. The HHS is the Health and Human Services Department, which owns, well, basically controls and leads the three largest health foundations you'll ever talk about or see and understand. And no, I'm not a professional in health and human services. Duh. You can see me not being able to list the three names. All I know is the CDC, the FDA, and all these others. And if I said that wrong, I'm stupid. I apologize. I don't know the third one, and I probably can't name the abbreviations. But all I know is that they are affecting vaccines. And back in 2020 and 2021, I had large arguments with anti vaxxers during my time in high school. Long story in itself. But RFK is so anti science and for pseudoscience, he will drive this country back into a large recession, not only in the intelligence and health intelligence of this country, the physio intelligence of people's individual core values and beliefs around their human, their health of their body. He is trying to remove vaccine mandates. He doesn't understand how vaccine works. He talks about sniffing cocaine off of his toilet seat. And he constantly rambles about how much money he gets and how much money he invests, while also breaking numerous health code regulations and laws, and now having since detaching from WHO, which is the World Health Organization. WHO is World Health Organization. That's what the abbreviation means. They have been now completely abandoned by RFK. And Donald Trump also abandoned the Paris Treaty Agreement, right? And they also abandoned WHO, the World Health Organization, which had been, well, behind most of all of the news around COVID, right? And now we're having this measles outbreak going on in the United States after a very long time. Measles is usually a rarely, it's something that you rarely get in this country, right? Or anywhere on the world, right? Because we have vaccines. We have vaccines and health treatments that we can take for them to combat measles. And well, measles just came back larger than ever before, right? And make America healthy again. MAHA, Make America healthy again, is completely aided and funded by RFK Jr. So, Robert Kennedy, he is going to doom us all whenever he starts to push in new laws or rules saying that we don't care if the food is safe to eat. We already have issues with food that we eat, the food that we buy off in stores, right? He doesn't care about that. If it's safe to eat, or if it's good for your body, or if the study regimen is okay, or if we should put labels on this stuff to see if it's okay to eat, or if it's safe and it doesn't do harm to our bodies. When he starts doing that, and starts saying that vaccines shouldn't be a thing, you must imagine that at some point, with his actions, it will cause people to start getting more sick and spread the sickness across the country and other countries, in which we have yet to explore the cuts on USAID, which was the United States agreement with Mexico and Canada that we've completely retracted from. Millions of unnecessary lives will be dying towards 2030. We're in 2026. We already have thousands and thousands of people dying. And when Robert F. Kennedy basically said, "Oh, that doesn't matter. They don't matter. All I care about is my money, and that vaccines are fake and dangerous and cause autism," which is really stupid. He doesn't even know what a toxin is. For sake, tell him what a toxin is, and he will literally ignore you and just leave the room. I looked into numerous channels like Dr. Mike or like Professor Dave, and they give me so many insights into how health works, and that's where I got my information from about vaccines. Besides Dr. Fauci, which people dissed on from the conservative side, which caused all those anti-vaxxer mobs to appear, and I saw those Jubilee debates, and it is incredible from all the Jubilee debates that I've been watching. Jubilee's a channel on YouTube that basically promotes debates, but it's like this one guy in the middle of the room debating 20 or 15 people, and all those debates opened my eyes about the types of doctors and what the types of things that they had to do with like the pharmacy company, the pharmacy industry, right, and all these other things that have been going on. I can go on all day about it, but we're focusing on RFK. RFK Jr. must be completely removed from the Health and Human Services and must be replaced with somebody who knows science and understands science. I could never be trusted in such a position. What I do know is that our health is at risk, and with the measles outbreak that's been going on, yes, we need somebody new to take charge. And I guess that makes it right here. I'll be putting in my last remarks is that the Ellisons must be dealt with totally. We need to boycott everything that they do. We need to put them in the court. All of the Ellison family. We need to deal with Peter Thiel. We need to show this man that democracy still exists, not oligarchy or technocracy. Shatter his dreams. We need to deal with Elon Musk. Elon Musk must be put into jail for his crimes and for his neglectance and the obvious hate campaigns that's been started. Adobe must be taken to court and fined all to filing oblivion. All of their services must be taken to court. I hope Lina Khan gives Adobe a run for their money. They should. Spotify must be completely reformed. The entire board needs to be entirely reformed. Suno and Udio AI must completely meet justice. Visa and MasterCard must be split. We must sign law that says that they cannot interfere with our business. They should leave the creative decisions to the creators, not their corporate business practices. Also, Donald Trump must be completely arrested and impeached, and every singular billionaire internationally that joined in on the operation of minor trafficking that Epstein caused, and I will say it, child trafficking, they should be put in jail and investigated and be put behind bars, or even execution. Oracle must be investigated and must be completely defunded and should be replaced by a competitive company. Microsoft should be completely reformed and should have a new CEO to the core. Persona must be completely destroyed and their surveillance operations must be put to a stop. Flock safety must be completely defunded and completely stopped in operations to the fullest possible until they can make a reliable surveillance system for crime and the possible future integration of security technology as a whole. They should not be investigating crimes and violating the data privacy that human citizens deserve across the world, regardless of their race, origin, or country. Ubisoft should completely collapse. I don't need to say anything else about them. And Collective Shout should be completely disbanded and completely disbanded and removed from the roster that they tirade with MasterCard and Visa for in the censorship of video games as a whole. Ty Starmer and Donald Trump should be completely investigated and completely, literally given fine and jail time for their violation of data privacy, freedom of expression, and freedom of speech and freedom of press as a whole. they are inspiring and instigating the mass surveillance across the world. Sane Takechi should be impeached and removed from government. The Green Party should successfully and should be successfully voted in to take over and give the Reform Party and Labour Party of the United Kingdom a run for their money. They should completely win and they should take over. This entire country should vote blue and impose new regulations for all the AI evolutions, because we simply are not ready for AI. We are sick and tired of AI. It's over. Fraud, surveillance, crime, racism, echo chambers, all of those things. Honey should be completely stopped in operations. Honey, by the way, the coupon service for Honey should completely be stopped. Klarna, same as well. Instacart should also be put to stop in operations. They should stop monopolizing and jeopardizing the lives of working class families across the world, which, by the way, if they want to go across the world, not just the United States, they should be put a stop into operation and should not exist. They are simply using AI operated price tags to help suck the money out of your wallet so that they further get more profits, right, for businesses that greedily use their services to take advantage of your living wage, which is already crippling under this administration. RFK Jr. should be completely removed from the board of the Health and Human Services as fast as friendly possible out of there. The CDC and the FDA directors should also be investigated and completely be put into trial in court for the actions that they're committing. Those leaders should be put in investigation for the violation of human rights as a whole. Get them the hell out of here. As a Projecttian, I will fully put on the name that we should put in investigations to these horrible people. Put them in behind jail bar or jail cells for crimes against humanity as a whole, and should be fully impeached and removed from these places and their powers and their seats of power as a whole. They are committing crimes against humanity, and that's all I need to know. Soon the new AI will coming for you. Then the AI lawsuit will be proven to be consequential. We must win that indie AI lawsuit. We must win the lawsuit against Honey. Megalad, keep doing what you're doing. Lena Khan, do what you're doing. Zora Mamdani, you are one of the greatest people I've ever witnessed live on this planet. You were the best vote that the New York people could have voted for. In Japan, don't do this to yourself. Sane is not going to save your country. The Prime Minister of your country is not going to save you. She only believes in her self-value. She does not care about the full people of Japan. Your working ethics and your birthright issues will not be solved by somebody who was voted out of spectacle, and she should be impeached. The UK, you must also go through full entire reform. Your garbage of a country looks like a utopia at first, but when you start talking in your opinion against the government, that's when it changes. Age verification should die. In Roblox, David Bazuki, I love you, man. I didn't even talk about you throughout this entire State of the Union that I'm posting online. I love you, man. Alright? You were such an inspiration for me to have belief that in the world where we could finally see people putting their creations in their virtual world, I wanted to see people make whatever they wanted to make in the virtual space of yours that you invented, along with Eric Castle, one of the main leading developers of Roblox, and Shedaletsky, which were back in around the 2000s when interactive physics were invented. But you really scrutinized your entire community for your investors. You should be investigated in violation for data privacy and for all the violations of freedom of expression and the freedom of press that you've been committing. You put me and my friend and all my friends in slept for, you put them and labeled them as vigilantes to further pass your agenda of age verification and your corporate advocacy for the consolidation of your platform, upping the floor roofing price of your UGC items, and having such a horrible moderation service that it's inspired other platforms to continue to do the same. Visa and MasterCard should stay out of our business and put out of their misery, forever involving themselves with Valve and Steam. Steam and Valve are innocent, and they have since won against the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds lost their case against Valve, out of all people. And yeah, it's a telling tale. This will be quite the story to tell, because not only did I see most people who I saw as content creators were reliable, suddenly I saw a lot of them turn into a bunch of right-wing extremist homophobes. I saw all sorts of other ones turn their content direction into something else and have become the very speakers and messengers of what has been going on. We need people to vote in young voters and protest peacefully, but all as it is, a civil war must be fully avoided, and if it does go into a civil war, then things haven't gone the way they did it. And we must avoid full war with the Israel-Iran conflict, the Middle Eastern war thing, which I'm about to go into now. It should be put to a full stop. It will lead to death, unnecessary death, and it was caused illegally by the United States administration, the regime of dictator Trump. Dictator Trump must be put out of his misery. And Iran is not innocent either, but it shouldn't be riddled by war. Israel should not be riddled by war. The entire leader needs to be impeached and fully removed from Congress, and their entire state needs to be reformed. Nepal, the country, also showed that when social media got fully banned, their country can work together to fully change how things go, right? They need a country that's led by somebody true who will help the Nepalese people. Japan, don't do this to yourselves, and this will severely affect how many is. Sony, by the way, Sony, you're not fully innocent, and Anthropic AI, you're not fully innocent either, but as long as you continue to go the pathway you do, stay out of our business as creators, indies, and working class families. Stop this. This is treason, and this is a betrayal of human rights and expression as a whole. Don't do this. And besides that, Crunchyroll, you are not helping me. Crunchyroll has been really strict on pirating sites. By the way, pirating is not stealing, right? Piracy is not stealing. If you can't own anything, if you can't truly own anything, then piracy isn't stealing. And I stay true to that word. YouTube. Neil Mohan. Look, YouTube has been one of the largest places that I go to. One of the largest places I ever visit. Whenever I need to express my opinions, my statements, my music, my art, my love to creativity as a whole, my love letter to creativity as a whole is the labor of love, hate, and sadness that I put into all my projects recently. These are all for my cousins, my family, and the people who I care about. YouTube has been the very communication medium that I go to whenever I need to post something that I truly want out there for people to see and enjoy, because it makes me happy to see people combine together and enjoy the same thing, regardless of their race, background, ethnics, their ethical values, or their ethnicity, or their skin color, accent, or their sexual orientation. Something YouTube's been doing for me is being able to help me allow to translate what has been happening with an honest eye, because YouTube hasn't fully gone to the shrouders yet, even though that they've been implementing. Where the frill is it resuming from? It says minus 385.39.47. It says it started from minus 385.39.39. What does this specifically mean? Now this is all fully live, and I can't even delete this, because if I stop it, then it doesn't continue. Let's see if I can reinstate that. It died. I probably said something really important, and it probably didn't catch that, so Yeah, that's gonna suck really bad. All right, let's see. All right, let's just see where I stopped. All right, I know where I stopped now. All right. So basically, for those who might be tapping in, my stream went down because I forgot that my phone doesn't have infinite battery, and I should have put into account that. So let me try this again. Excuse me. There will be a refined video on YouTube that I'll soon post that will have all the music to make it more interesting. So I started about YouTube. It hasn't gone to the full shredders, and this light won't be working because I had a light here, but I don't have it now. So if I appear more darker, it's because my light's disconnected, and I need the charging space for my charger. My phone is not going to last too long. So, as you can see from what it is, YouTube has not gone to the full shredders, even though it's implemented all the AI regulation and all these things and all this age verification, the boucherie. How Neil Mohan and Pichai relate now because of their connections to an Indian background. India is really lenient on AI, right? It's lenient on AI and all that. And I did an entire speech about the people that I used to be. I felt the inspiration coming from because of what they do. But right now, even to me, Susan, when she was CEO, I felt she was in a better spot than where Neil was going to. She did die, but it was people kind of ignored it, put it to the side. She was not a great CEO, but was way better than Neil. Way better than Neil. Way better than Pichai. Pichai is CEO of Google, who owns YouTube. Yeah, the way that they're lenient on AI says a lot because India is really lenient on AI, which is why you keep seeing all that Indian slop, the Hindu slop, the conservative slop, all of the slop that you find from different countries that are just basically embracing it, like Greek slop. There's also Greek slop and Buddhist slop. So, I am the person who I became, and if I already did this speech, and I probably did already, and if I didn't, and it didn't capture, and you missed this, I basically went on before my phone literally died. I was talking about how I'm really proud of who I am, and I like this. I like of what I became. I like of where I came from. I cried with a lot of people. I've suffered with people, laughed, I loved, and I see my cadets as my children. And something that I keep close to me are my cadets, and I try to make a creative base, regardless of who we are. Besides, techno-fascist beliefs and all these other things, I don't want people who are nuisances to be a cadet, of course. What I mean by regardless of who they are is people who are more Moteness leaning. So with that, you need to protest peacefully, get in, vote young candidates into Congress in the United States. Do the same for other countries. For those who are in different countries, do the same over there. Old people are not they're out of touch. Don't trust in them. Only people, and unless the old person is fully wised up, like unless the person who's old is fully wise and understands what's going on, like Bernie Sanders, all think of robotics. I kind of It's kind of funny how he says robotics. Anyways, yeah, I've done what I could as a messenger and as a receiver and a person who puts the message around across. And because I can't simply act directly, right, on the things that have been going on because I simply just don't have money and I don't have a job. Tell that to Donald Trump. Tell that to the people in Florida who voted in Ron DeSantis. The very person who literally manages my district is a MAGA sellout, so you all know. She's the one scrutinizing this economy and the place where I live at. Say things to her. If you hate them, vote blue. Stay safe. Share kindness or love. What you say on this, what you say outside. For 8 years. And as always, I think that's all I have to say. relatively now. And the camera wasn't the best. I wish it were better, but YouTube isn't friendly about that. Anyways, this could have been higher resolution, but I got nothing else to say. So with that, this stream should be technically longer than the State of the Union that happened. If it isn't longer than the State of the Union, then it isn't. That will suck. But anyway, go beyond limit and excel. Be your best self. We're one with technology, with ourselves. We are part of the factor of many, and the resolution of mine continues to stand hold. I was wrong, right? Everybody told me that I was wrong. Well, you are wrong. You are absolutely wrong. You are not right. I was called a clown. I was called autistic, or filled with PTSD, that I had ADHD or something. It was called all sorts of mental illnesses. And here we are. You are the hypocrite. You are the worst kind of piece of humanity that could ever be brought to and born from what is going on. And don't continue to support the douchebags that I've listed, that I talked about in the stream. Don't support these douchebags. They're not for you, and they do not care about you. They want your money. They only want your money. Don't vote in people who are supported by political action committees. Political action committees are scummy, and we should fully fix this political finance system. And yeah, fuck ICE. Fuck fascism. Rise the moteness, as one would say. Rise the moteness.